has recently released new footage of a hostage held in Gaza, uh, where basically, well, we'll go through what the hostage has said. I don't think we'll play the video, but media has picked up on this story. Media has reported this, despite the fact that in the past, or at least pretty soon after October 7th, and then for some time when the hostages were already in Gaza, most of the Israeli media basically said they will not report on any of these hostage, basically the hostages, speaking out to I mean, we'll go through it to Netanyahu, for example, or to people basically recognizing it for it is. Hamas propaganda. It's basically, I mean, anything the hostages say is said under duress. It's said under basically a point of the gun. Um, Yet they've sort of changed the tune. They are now reporting on it, and you might be wondering why shouldn't they report on it? Well, we'll go through I believe the person, Idan Alexander, he's an American Israeli. We'll go through what I believe, forced to say, and I think it will become very clear that this is just straight up propaganda, hoping to achieve a certain goal. And I think media, by reporting on it, is helping Hamas achieve this goal. Now, if this is we'll talk about if it's made on purpose or if it's just accidental. But joining me today is Marco and Richard. Joining me today is also a different camera angle that I'm trying out, and people can tell me what they think. But Marco, how do you feel about this sort of let's say change in policy that basically now, media like Times of Israel, Haaretz are reporting on this?
Yeah, I mean, this issue has got it's twofold, really. First of all, it shows how vicious the Gazans are, how anti-life, how beastly, what kind of animal they are. We already knew that there are a bunch of killers and terrorists and nothing else after the actions of October the 7th, where they butchered over 1,000 people and they took 250 hostages. And then to use their hostages against their own family as a weaponized form of propaganda is just absolutely vicious. Let's remember that these hostages are held by the people who are seen here in the West as the victims. They've been held hostages by civilians in Gaza. The very people that the cretins, the useful idiots here in the West are protesting in favor for. I'd like to force these idiots in the West that chant in favor of Gaza all the time and gather their reaction. Look at this guy. He's under duress. He's forced to spew out propaganda. And he's clearly, he's clearly a victim of the situation. But then again, they misdirect who the victims are. And so, we are supposed to feel sorry for the perpetrators of the atrocities rather than the victim of the atrocities. So that's one side. The second side is the self-defeating release of the videos that Israel is going through. I mean, these videos are only released to the media after the families have agreed to do it, and to do so actually puts more people in harm's way in a way. So using this kind of emotionalism, showing how the people are treated, how the hostages are treated, only helps to skew the argument. So you miss the point. You no longer focus on what the issue is, but you focus automatically on the suffering of the person you're looking at, and that's an own goal, because in the end you refuse to see what the problem is, i.e. the viciousness of the Gazans and the Islamic ideology behind it, and you focus on the suffering of just one person, which is, it's true, it's somebody who's suffering, but the way of stopping further suffering in the future is not by overreacting and acting emotional about this.
Yeah, I think although we're talking about this particular video and this particular hostage, the important thing is to remember that we're not talking about this particular hostage because that's exactly what they want you to talk about. They want you to focus on one individual for whom you're encouraged to feel enormous sympathy for, and of course anybody feels enormous sympathy for them. But the important thing is that by doing so, it allows the emotionalism to be used as force. Yet that it's the exploitation of people's humanity by the inhumane. And if we succumb to that, then we simply earmark future hostages to be used in the same way, to be taken from their families, from their current lives that they're living, and used in the same way. If you accept both the fact that hostage takers should be negotiated with, and if you accept the fact that hostage videos should be shown and used, but which amplifies the hostage takers' demands, which is just encouraging more hostage taking in the future. So all of that feeds into the same thing. I mean, essentially, when you see that a hostage who's pleading for a deal, what I'm seeing is Hamas that's pleading for its survival. And I do not want Hamas to survive. And that is the element that I focus on when I watch this, or when I read about it. But it's a trick. It's very tricky because obviously people empathize instantly with the version of this that they can see right in front of their eyes, rather than the future version, which hasn't happened yet, but will happen more and more, so long as humans are used as human currency in order for evil people to get their way.
Yeah, so Ginger in the chat is asking if we played the video. We haven't played it, and I don't think we should play it. So I watched it, so I have a few quotes from it to sort of give you an idea of I think what it was created for, what is the goal of it. You with something like this, you have to remember this is not something. This is not like a hostage has stolen a camera and published a live stream on X or something like that. This is, if you watch the video, the person looks like he's pretty much reading from a script, like he's sort of just reciting, just looking in one place and saying it. It's cut down in a specific way. He at one point he speaks in Hebrew, at some point he speaks in English. You might be wondering why would he speak for English? Well, because he is reaching in. Well, we shouldn't say he. Hamas wants a certain audience to hear it. Hamas wants a certain audience to reach it. So there is a goal they're trying to achieve it. It reminds me of when me and Alex have made an episode about Ahed Tamimi, and she's one of the basically I mean Palestinian terrorists who are trying to uh, sort of advance their cause. And a big part of what she did specifically was whenever she protested or whenever she attacked Israeli soldiers, she made sure to wear Western clothes, basically, sort of making sure more people can relate to it. Or that the Western audience specifically can relate to it better. But sort of like going through the actual basically what he said. So first he spoke directly to Netanyahu, then he spoke directly to Donald Trump in English. And so just to give you a few quotes, I have been a prisoner of Hamas for 420 days. I heard you speaking to the people of Israel on the news, and I'm very disappointed. So again, this is not his words. This is the words of Hamas. Hamas wants basically to put doubt into Netanyahu's leadership, into the way this war has been conducted. I heard that you will give 5 million to whoever brings hostages back, and then I think he went on to talk about how about the deal. He said, "You neglected us." And I think this one was the most, I think, revealing. "Please, people of Israel, go out to demonstrate every day and pressure the government." I think that is the most revealing of basically what is the goal of this. The goal of this is to uh, to make it more likely for a ceasefire to be achieved, to make it more likely for Israel or the Israeli government to bend under pressure of, for example, the protests. I mean, the protests against the Netanyahu's government, or basically, I mean, against this war, really, and for a ceasefire have been going on. I mean, not that long after the October 7. So there is this push, and this is what, again, this is what Hamas wants. This is what Hamas's goal is. So sort of now going back to the media reporting on it, what is the goal? Are you actually just, do you just want to inform people about what's going on, or do you agree with the demands, basically? Do you agree with the demands of Hamas or the demands of the hostage that was forced to basically just say the words of Hamas, that basically, there should be a ceasefire. There should no longer be war. I mean, Marco, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to understand why the media are amplifying this kind of stuff. Why are they showing the video? Why are they putting excerpt of it? Because all he actually does, the whole purpose of this video is by these vicious bastards to actually show the suffering of this guy and divert the sympathy that you will feel for him and associate it with the people of Gaza. So they're trying to, Hamas is trying to show you this guy is suffering, but also our people are suffering, and they're trying to hijack the pain and the suffering that this poor guy is going through, and divert it and use it to push for their own survival, effectively, to push for an emotional argument that says, oh, our people are suffering too, like this guy. So if you feel sorry for him, you must be sorry for us. And as you mentioned, the fact that the language is switched is because Hamas is sending a message, not only to the Israeli government, not only to the crowds in Israel, who they are trying to exploit in order to put pressure on the government, but they're also sending a message in English to the useful idiots in the West who are putting pressure and causing all sorts of trouble and violence and anti-Semitic hate. They're effectively normalizing here in the West. And by saying, by passing this message on, by showing this message, the media are just literally helping Hamas to proselytize and put out the message and galvanize the useful idiots even more. So I really don't see any advantage in and any reason why the media should do it, apart from some cynical desire to, I don't know, sensationalize the issue and just sell a few copies of a paper. But ultimately, doing this, you just play in the hand of Hamas and all the, the animals, the savages like them, who will exploit this, who will see this as a technique, a tactic that works, because they know that the West is fundamentally pro-life. They don't care about life. They're quite happy to let the children die for propaganda purposes, to let them die as soldiers. We've seen that young kids, early teenagers, are used as fighters by Hamas and by people like them. They don't care about life, but they know that we do, and they try to exploit that against us.
I think what Hamas is doing is agitating for division within Israel, within the Israeli government in particular. Some of that aligns with some of the media organizations that dislike Netanyahu or its particular setup of government. So they're quite happy to have agitate for division within the government levels, but it's at the price of weakening general Israelis' resolve for fighting Hamas and fighting the evil. So it's an incredibly high price to pay, even if you share by outcome alone the fact that they desire Netanyahu to fall from being the leader of Israel. So there's that in there for sure. And then also when you look at what the actual this particular hostage says, he says at one point, fear and isolation is killing us. Now, fear and isolation being floating words that don't have, a perpetrator when they're used like that. But of course, the perpetrator is not fear and isolation that's killing you. And of course, these aren't his words. I want to stress that once again. But it's Hamas that is killing them. It's Hamas that's put them in this situation. Any of the suffering caused to the hostages is from Hamas. So Hamas don't get the chance to tout for sympathy for even those hostages that they're holding, because they are the ones causing the pain, which we're supposed to then respond to. So and when you look at these, showing these actual clips, but when the media shows these clips, it's a bit like dealing in stolen goods, isn't it? You may not have caused the crime, but if you deal in something that has been stolen from a legitimate owner, then you know that you are partaking in the evil that led to this being in your hands. You're led, even if you didn't steal it yourself, you are part of the problem. And you are part of the problem, frankly, if you show these hostage videos, because you are also advocating for hostage taking now and in the future.
So first, someone in the chat is asking, will you guys talk about what's happening in Syria? So we were talking about if we should talk about it. I mean, the big part is there is not much specifically to talk about when it comes to like, it's basically like even now, sort of like the Syrian rebels are basically just Islamists supported by Turkey. So there's almost like it's like bad guys fighting the bad guys. So we might still do a show about it, and also getting someone more knowledgeable than I am, because whenever I start looking into the Syrian civil war, I just get like I have no idea what's going on because there's so many things. But maybe in the next few days we will do an episode about it. Especially if we can find an interesting angle to focus on rather than just repeating what has happened and basically just repeating it. We have a super chat from PC. Thank you so much. He says BBC loves Hamas, and also someone in the chat is saying that quote shows that Hamas is making him say it. I mean, even if it wasn't Hamas making him say it, I mean, you could say he came up with it on his own, but he is a hostage held. He knows exactly what situation he's in. It's not like he knows he can speak out his mind. It's not like he can, you wouldn't hear it if he said, Ignore me, ignore the hostages, just go full in. Hamas has to be destroyed. And if you can save me, I'll be glad. But, I understand this is a terrible situation to be in. And, I'm not saying that unless it says that he's not like being a hostage, you are in a terrible situation. Ethics are not about what you do in the worst situation possible. In those situations, you should just do whatever you can to get out. But I think something that's also interesting about this is specifically the timing of the release. And I'm not sure if we know if this was, like recorded last week and just published now, or if it was recorded a long time ago. But something that is interesting again about the timing is, now you have the Lebanon ceasefire, so there is a little bit of pressure there. And because of that, more people are pressuring for the Gaza ceasefire. I've just read the report that apparently Hamas agrees to some sort of basically post-war way this is going to be managed. Just to bring up the report. Yeah, basically Hamas agreed to a US supervised plan for post-war Gaza management. So if your whole goal is as a Hamas is to survive, is to make sure you are not being obliterated, this is the best time to release something, and for Western media to talk about it, because this is you can say, well, see, even like you have the hostages here. Just a reminder, Hamas only reminds people of the hostages. You are only reminded of the hostages when it comes to, having a ceasefire. It's not about, that Hamas has done that, that Hamas has put these hostages in that situation. Uh, and just to mention the one more point, so he also, as we've said, he then goes on to speak in English. He speaks directly to Donald Trump. I think choosing or having from Hamas a very interesting choice of words. Do not make the same mistake Biden did, which I found pretty interesting because this is we've been talking about Biden's horrible policy, and they are talking about it too, but it's from a very different perspective. They view Biden as being too pro-Israel, as being too basically uh, by only. I mean, it's really hard to even say that. How can you like find Biden as being too pro-Israel? But if your view is that existence of Israel itself is evil, then yeah, Biden is evil. Biden, in even in some mild way, is keeping Israel alive by, in some case, helping Israel basically defend from Iran against the rockets in April. Even that was too much for them. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd like to point out the guy is in captivity, so whatever he says is not to be taken as valid. If somebody points a gun at you, whatever you say is not what you're thinking. Your freedom is being taken away, so your freedom of expression is being taken away. That's for the first thing. That's why when hostages, soldiers, or civilians are taken, you just shouldn't send this kind of propaganda unless they're provided some information, as you mentioned, unless they manage to get hold of some means of communication, they get in touch to provide some evidence or some intelligence. They're not to be what they say is not to be trusted. And also, about Hamas trying to survive. Yes, absolutely. I mean, Ayn Rand has the unique view of good and evil. She mentioned that evil only thrives when the good uh, stops taking the action that stops the evil from thriving. So Hamas effectively subscribes to this. Hamas realizes that Israel taking the action it's taking is thwarting, is representing an existential threat to Hamas itself. So they recognize that if the good stops acting through a ceasefire, they're going to come out on top. They're the one that win. That's why the only solution for Israel is to wipe them out utterly until every single Gazan decides to renounce their ideology, renounce Hamas. There's no point stopping. They're gonna come back. They're just gonna, be quiet for a few years and then come back again. And that's why we're seeing, movement in adjacent countries because the balance of power is changing slightly, so people are rearranging. That's what happens if you stop pounding these animals. If you stop pounding the savages that reign supreme in the whole Middle East, well, you don't win. You're never going to be able to have a peaceful state or a peaceful um, relationship between states because ultimately these guys will always dictate the terms.
I think just to back up the points that you guys both made. I mean, if you were a captive, you would be trying to trick your captors into thinking that you're complying with them, right up until the first second that you no longer have to comply with them, when you would then speak your own mind. So that's the way in which to view what is said during any hostage video. When it comes to what he said about Biden and Netanyahu, again, you can tell from the fact that is what is being said and how it's formulated, you know that isn't what you would be saying as a hostage. That is clearly directly from Hamas, obviously. It's just further proof of that. And of course, the extent to which Biden has been, whether you think he's been soft on Israel or whether you think he's been too pro-Hamas, it's been the extent to which Netanyahu has ignored the advice, or which Israel has ignored the advice and gone ahead despite what he said about Rafah and the various restrictions that he would have imposed on Israel's ability to fight Hamas at every stage. And then when it comes to Trump, obviously, I mean, we can reference the Truth Social message, the social media message, where he said there would be all hell to pay and spoke specifically about Hamas. And obviously, that is rhetoric, but it's not rhetoric in comparison with a hostage video rhetoric. It is rhetoric from a legitimately elected leader or the future leader of the free world, and it should be used to scare evil into submitting. And I think it's telling that that has come out in the last few days as well. I think that came out after this particular video, and that does reset how people should look at it, I think. Of course, it remains to be seen as to whether it's followed through. So to that extent, it is only rhetoric at this point, but it is strong rhetoric. And strong rhetoric on the right side is what we haven't seen enough of for some time, I think.
But by the way, the hostage in the message mentioned is being captive for 420 days, which would make the date of the video about around Friday. So it's fairly recent.
And although you could invent that number in the future, you could pretend it's in day 500 and record it today. There's enough things in there to suggest it's fairly recent. The fact they're talking about Trump, the fact they're talking about the Lebanon ceasefire deal, and of course the fact that you're proving that this hostage is alive is one of the things that that is used as a psychological weapon, because it gives a sudden hope to the families, and of course all the other families that maybe their hostages are alive, and all of this this playing with people's lives and hopes is what these hostages rely on. And I think that's another reason why you shouldn't fall sucker to their propaganda.
Yeah, so just wrapping up, it's really unfortunate that there are still, I believe, around 100 hostages in Gaza, but it has to be remembered that unless Israel fully finishes Gaza, meaning Hamas, and the sort of the ideas of Hamas, the sort of the Palestinian spirit, if you want, unless that is like utterly crushed, unless it is proven to them that this is not a way to conduct yourself or to coexist next to Israel, unless that is being fully done, which you cannot do if you accept any form of ceasefire. Unless that is done, there will be more hostages. It might not be Hamas, it might not be Palestinian Islamic Jihad, it might not be Fatah, it might not be any of the groups right now, but there will be more hostages unless the ideas of Islamic supremacy, Islamic terrorism is dealt with. But as we mentioned about the deal, the potential post-war Gaza deal, we might talk about it in some of the upcoming days. But now we'll on the reality show, starting in just about a minute or so, we'll take sort of a look back. If you guys remember the Lancet article that was released about 5 months ago about the number, the 186,000, and how that number was repeated. So we'll go through, we'll look at some of the statements that were said at the time, some of the predictions that were made at the time, and also some of the statements that have been made recently by people using it, and sort of showing you real time how propaganda is made. So make sure to join us on the reality show in just a bit. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and bye bye.
Bye bye.